Welcome back once again to a fresh take, culture and comics. Um, by the time you're seeing this, we'll have also just posted a really fascinating interview with independent comic publishers Bad Ink Studios, talking about their pulpy sci-fi comic. It's really great, interdimensional. So check that out. Tonight it's that time of year. Our end of the year top 10 lists are popping up all over the place. We are no exception. We're going to be doing our TV shows of the year. And next week, I believe, we will also be doing our comic of the year, or comics of the year. So we'll wrap that up. But with that, we're going to get right into it. I'm bringing our guests, a couple returners. Jackie, welcome.
Hey.
Robert Kessler.
What's up?
And this is the first time you guys have actually met, right?
Yeah.
So this will be fun.
I've never met before.
We'll figure it out.
Strangers.
I have no idea what these takes are going to be.
I know. Well, hopefully they'll be fresh. So here's what we're going to do. So we are going to be going through our top 10 lists. And if this was an very abundant year of TV. I think we'll probably talk about that in macro in a little bit here. So if one of us has a show on their list that the other haven't seen, we're going to ask that person to give a couple sentences on why it's on their list, what it did for them to make it there, and then we'll move on. And as we have kind of mutual things on our list, we'll get into discussions about those shows. My top of the show kind of overarching statement is, I guarantee, audience, you will have shows that you feel like have to be on everybody's top 10 list that are not on any of ours. There were a million shows this year. We did not get to see them all. Well, maybe Kessler might have seen them all, but
Nope.
most humans were not able to see them all. And so if you have a show that you love that's on our list, might I suggest dropping it in the comments? Let us know about it and why it's on your list, and we'll check it out. So with that said, before we get into the list, just a big question. In general, what did you guys think of 2022 in the land of TV? Did you find it a strong year, exciting, varied themes, anything that jumps out at you?
I think it was a big year for representation and diversity. I think more than we've seen in other years. A big year for franchises, of course. Marvel rules the world right now. And I think there's a lot of nostalgia type watching happening where you're resuscitating an old property, or it's like a new take on something that's already existing, which happened a lot on TV and also movies, I think. But I don't know if anyone else caught anything else.
Yeah, I think that this is a very good year for television. I think when I start to look over my list of things that popped out at me this year, when we're coming out of sort of the COVID pandemic environment, where I'm seeing this theme pop up both in TV and in movies, sort of work and people's relationship with work, and class and people's relationship with class. And I think I'm seeing that, it might have to do with post-Parasite, even a lot of in movie theaters, I'm seeing a lot of class satires, and on TV, I'm seeing part of that. And a lot of shows, almost all of my shows, have some relationship with work. I don't think I'm going to name a single family show or even many hangout shows. They're largely shows that have to do with work and people working and people's relationship with work.
All right, right on. One of my jump outs here is actually I'm used to these lists kind of being dominated by Netflix, and my list is decidedly not. But we'll get into those details a little bit more later. So with that in mind, Kessler, what is your number 10 show?
So the number 10 show on my list is HBO's The Rehearsal. I don't know. Is this on either of your lists?
No.
But what is it about? I'm very aware of it. I have not seen it. Go for it.
All right. So The Rehearsal is a show that ostensibly is about Nathan Fielder of Nathan For You fame, helping people rehearse for difficult situations that are coming up in their own lives. The show then largely becomes about Nathan Fielder himself rehearsing for a situation, and then goes even deeper down a rabbit hole of people rehearsing for rehearsals of rehearsals. And it's certainly one of the most inventive shows I've seen. I mean, I was a huge fan of Nathan For You. I don't know if the show totally worked for me by the end, but it was one of the more compelling things I've seen on TV. And I'm really grateful we got to see it this year.
Right on.
Sounds rad.
Okay, Jackie, what's your number 10?
My number 10 was actually The Boys. I don't know if that made anybody's list, but yeah. It's so nice to kind of see the whole superhero genre kind of turn on its head and maybe skewed in a more, I don't want to say realistic light, but in terms of it existing in real world with our political climate, with our current narratives in media, I think it's good to have a balance of something that's a little bit more rooted versus, let's say, whatever Marvel is doing, which is kind of in an idealized alternate world where people just accept things as they are and the narratives don't exist the way we experience them, right? So yeah, The Boys is my number 10.
Robert, was it on your list?
I liked this season of The Boys. It fell in like my 11 to 15 range, so it's one of my honorable mentions. But I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I just have not gotten to it for no good reason than I just haven't gotten to it. I am a Boys fan. I just haven't seen the season. So, all right. Well, then we'll round out the top 10. And I think, again, us all having, I'm guessing this isn't on your guys' list either. Maybe I'll be surprised. But I think it's another testament to just, how much good stuff there was this year. And this is a little bit Daddington Island here, but Prehistoric Planet. The dinosaur documentary on Apple TV this past year really was first of all, it was the level of animation was to the point where you honestly forgot that you weren't watching actual like filming of dinosaurs. Like, even though it's completely impossible, it was just that compelling. And they found a way to really like get you invested emotionally into the stories of those. And there has been so much that they've learned about sort of dinosaur behavior since I was growing up as a kid, that I sort of like, you learn about it as a kid and it kind of freezes in your mind, like that's what the dinosaurs were. And it's like, it's so vastly different based on the knowledge they have now. And so I learned a ton. It was great to watch with the family. It was genuinely moving and really just an impressive achievement, and sort of impressive achievements, I think actually is a theme on my list this year for sure. So let's go back the other way. Number 9 for you, Jackie.
Number 9, God, I'm so cliche in all my picks right now. Sorry. I have Peacemaker, which was on HBO Max. RIP HBO Max. But yeah, Peacemaker was, again, kind of in the same realm of The Boys. DC has some like great content on HBO. I hope that continues, but I don't, who knows where things stand right now. But it puts the whole superhero narrative on its head. All the characters are deeply flawed. And it's just kind of a story of a ragtag group kind of coming together and making it happen, even though obviously they're probably not the A team in terms of superheroes. But I really enjoyed the humor. I, of course, love the director, James Gunn, who is now helming DC along with somebody else on the business side. So I think in retrospect now, thinking about that show, I think it's really telling of where the direction of DC might go. So I really loved Peacemaker. Yeah.
Peacemaker also was like in one of my honorable mention tiers. And it was excellent. And I think that like it really, when you talk about like James Gunn, I think that like he found that he's really he can do great work in the medium of episodic storytelling, and like it was a strong sort of episodic show that really episodes worked as episodes, and there were cliffhangers, and it built a season-long arc that came to a satisfying and compelling conclusion at the end. And it was just like everything you sort of want out of a season of television. That's similar to The Boys as well. They both kind of do that thing that maybe some other streaming services are not as good at, with sort of the episodic television of it all.
I'm very off-brand, and will say there's been 2 comic book entries, and I have not seen either. So I'm not haven't gotten there, folks. Kessler, what is your number 9?
My number 9 is Abbott Elementary. This is the only show in my top 25 list from broadcast TV. It's one of only 2 shows on my list that did not originate on a streaming service, assuming HBO shows are all Max shows. This is not just sort of an impressive achievement, but it is because so rarely, I mean, honestly, in the past like 6 years, I think I've watched 2 broadcast TV shows like this. Not just like an impressive achievement, but it's good. I think it's really, really good. They've crafted a really well-made like sitcom. It's sort of taken tropes from shows like The Office and expanded upon them. And honestly, like, it's getting even stronger. Like the last few episodes I watched this year, like, I don't do this often, but I laughed out loud a few times. So Abbott Elementary is my number 9.
That's cool that you say that, because you're right in terms of having broadcast TV on anybody's list. At least mine, like, it's been gone for a while. So I'll have to check that out. You make a really good case for it.
It was in my honorable mention in my kind of 10 to 15. And actually, when I did my first pass at it, I did have it at 10, and then it dropped out. I think if my household had a list, it would definitely be firmly in the top 10. My only thing that holds it back a little bit, because I agree, I mean, it's just excellently crafted TV. It's very funny. The ensemble's great. Is it's a little bit, it is decidedly old school network in this way. I kind of know where every episode's going. Like, I need a little bit more sort of plot variety. I guess she's going to learn the lesson again, but they do it so very well. And it's just an enjoyable watch.
And then 22-minute episodes. Can't get enough of that.
Right on. Yep, right on. Okay, my number 9. It's my family theme kind of weighs heavy on the back end of my list, but is Mysterious Benedict Society. Have either one of you heard of that one?
No,
I've heard of it, but I haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, it's on Disney Plus. This is the 2nd season this year. Season 1 was just one of my absolute favorite surprises, and season 2 is not disappointed. It is a kind of a mystery adventure series based on it's a children's book series by Trenton Lee Stewart. A sort of ragtag group of kids that are sort of outliers in either intellect or creativity or oddity or whatever, that are brought together by this sort of mysterious benefactor, and it turns out to kind of like save the world against his evil twin brother. It has those kind of notes, but the cast is exceptional. The production design is a 10 out of 10, which definitely is a theme this year on my list as well. Just really beautiful production design this year in TV, I think. It is vaguely 1960s, but like without ever saying that, but it has that like very mid-century modern, like crafted color palette, and the details are so thoroughly thought out, and it's really super saturated. It's genuinely funny. It's well acted. My wife and I are always looking for like kids shows that we really can fully enjoy as adults, and this is definitely one of them. I think it's one of the best, all ages show on TV, period. So
better than the Mighty Ducks show.
It is better than the Mighty Ducks show. It's honestly, I really do think it's like very upper end of Disney Plus's offerings across all IP. I really love it. But like, we
Great.
look forward to it genuinely every week. So I'll start number 8 and send it back this way. So now I will dip into my nerd bag, and Miss Marvel is my number 8 this year. It is my favorite Disney Plus show of the year. And for a few different reasons. One, I just think, aside from the fact that she, our lead actress, is just so perfectly cast, I love the way they put her family and her relationship to her family as essentially the center of the story, and made it a story about a young girl coming of age in a loving family and the challenges those bring. And I found it was not flawless, and I think, like, I go on record and saying that I think the Disney Plus shows have either been too long or too short. The sort of 6 episode is a mistake, and it looks like they're moving away from that now. But I found it odd that the criticisms of that show typically centered around, well, there was no real big bad, and like, what was the real challenge, and like, it was her, finding a way to be herself in a family that has different expectations of her. And I found it charming. I genuinely was choked up in that final scene with her dad on their roof there. I thought it was beautiful and really visually inventive again. Miss Marvel was on my list. I don't know, was it on anyone else's?
It's actually my number 7.
Okay, you want to talk to it at all?
Well, okay, so very similar to what you said, Iman Vellani as Ms. Marvel is just such a breath of fresh air. She brings just so much energy, so much love for the genre, which absolutely reads every frame, every line she says. She loves this medium. She loves this character. And just the family dynamic is something that you don't really get into in depth when it comes to a lot of like these superhero shows. Like, yeah, there's a mom there, there's a dad there, but they're mostly like just props to the main character. But this is the first time you see a closer look at a family, at a culture, at a religion. And this is where it touches upon themes of, what's going on in our world right now in terms of Iman's religion and community with authorities, their relationship, which you almost never see on TV, how problematic and harmful those interactions can be. But also, this is, I think, the first Disney Plus show that I've seen that doesn't end in a big, like, pew pew, people are zooming and a lot of these shows, they don't quite stick the landing, but I think this is the first one that felt really satisfying to me. And it felt like a complete character journey.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah, this one was again in like sort of my 16 to 20 range. Very much that doesn't mean I very much enjoyed it. I thought she's excellent. She's so good. And I think it really started really strong, and then sort of like I lost it a bit with. I felt like the show spent too much time on the trip to Pakistan, particularly given like how much rich of a world they built out in the early episodes in Jersey City. And I think that with only 6 episodes, spending a third of that time away from most of her large supporting ensemble was, I wish that they had sort of kept that maybe for a second season, or that have been maybe a couple episodes in a longer season. But she's great. The show worked very well.
Right on. Okay, so that was my 8. So we're still on 8. Jackie, what's your number 8?
My number 8 is She-Hulk. Now, I know you're a little touch and go on She-Hulk, but again, in terms of this superhero medium, this is the first show that I've ever seen that centers on the female experience, which is through the eyes of somebody going through their own superhero journey. But that's so rare in TV that the moment episode 1 happened and already these references to what it is to be a woman in the real world happened, I was like, I don't want to say shell shocked, but I was just like, oh, wow, we're finally going to talk about this thing. And even though for some of the response, a lot of folks were like, "Oh, you can't, say that stuff," or "Oh, we know this stuff already." But it's so rare to talk about it on a larger platform like this. And I really loved the jokes. I really loved all the like touches to old sitcoms, like 90s sitcoms, especially. It was really cool for me to find those Easter eggs. I think I previously freaked out to you about how Jennifer Walters' dad was in Perfect Strangers, which I watched
Yeah,
so
sure.
much with my
For
dad.
sure.
I loved it. And even though I think towards the middle of the season, things just kind of felt like there was a lot of fluff. Like some storylines I don't think were necessary.
Don't you say Daredevil?
No, Daredevil stays forever. In fact, I want more of them
More
together.
Daredevil.
All I want.
Yeah. All I want is more of their dynamic.
So happy when he came back at the end.
Oh my god, it was so cute. God, that ship sailed so fast for me.
I know. Yeah, I'll say because I know you're a big fan of it as well. So I'll just say my one little piece and step aside. I didn't have my criticisms of that show are very like succinct. I don't think it. I don't have a problem with the format. I love Tatiana Maslany. I think she's just one of my favorites. I thought the cast was great. It wasn't a problem so much with what the show was as it just for me was the humor just didn't land, and it was built on being a funny show, and it didn't tickle my humor bone. But I don't have like a heavy criticism of the show at all.
This show is fucking rad. I think it comes in at like 11 or 12 on my list, so just outside my top 10. It's probably my second or third favorite like entity in all of Phase 4. There's really only one thing that's definitely ahead of it. That would be Shang-Chi for me. But I loved this. I think that this show is the most accurate show. Like when they talk about adding diversity into the MCU, I was like, oh, I'm like a straight white man. Like that's gonna be great. I'll see experiences unlike my own, but also like, I've had my time. And then all of a sudden here comes a show that is like the most accurate depiction of being a person in your mid 30s on dating apps in Los Angeles. And I'm like, oh, this show is like micro targeted at me. I'm the person for this show. So I thought it was great. I have like really like honestly like so few complaints with it whatsoever. I thought it worked throughout. I thought it worked episodically. I think we could have, I guess I would have been hoping that 9 episodes, a few of the supporting characters might have been a little more fleshed out. The woman, I'm sorry, I forget the character's name or the actress's name, but the woman who is from Hamilton, I was a bit perplexed about her usage in the show. I thought she, could have been a little more there. Show's awesome. Everyone loved it. Like best of the Disney Plus Marvel shows for me.
And also just to mention, I think this is also a really good self-referential show in terms of kind of navel gazing at the fandom surrounding a lot of this, with the whole thing with Captain America. Now we know what's going on there. Very important things, because I've had that conversation before with people, and whoever says that they haven't is lying, because we've all been thinking it. But it was really cool to have those moments, and I think it's also, for fans of Deadpool, it's another take, even though She-Hulk did it first. And it's also the truest adaptation.
But I want to gloss over that.
I'm
going to interrupt you I'm going to interrupt you just to that. If you're watching this and you still are under some impression that She-Hulk ripped that aspect off from Deadpool, God. She-Hulk was breaking fourth wall in the comics quite literally a decade or so before. Yeah. Well, yeah, almost a decade before Deadpool was even created as a character. So anyway, please continue.
But yeah, I think it's the most accurate adaptation of a comic book character. Like the Jennifer Walters that I read in the comic books is the same Jennifer Walters that I see in She-Hulk. So that's just amazing.
And She-Hulk fucks. And like nobody like in the MCU has like had a drop of like literally this is like the most chaste love stories of like any like 10 years of like I'm sorry like Tony
Eternals,
Stark the
buddy.
baby that Tony Stark's daughter was artificially inseminated in Pepper Potts. Like those two don't touch each other.
Yeah.
Like She-Hulk fucks and her and Daredevil. Like I like just I mean
Chef's
like,
kiss. Chef's
like
kiss.
all I needed in life was to see Daredevil like do a walk of shame. Now, like if we can start the Daredevil show with him completing that walk of shame into like a confession booth, that would be amazing.
I need that too.
What is? Oh, I have a child who's wandered their way down here. You can go talk to mom. Oh. Sorry about that, guys. Where are we at? I've lost my account here.
We're on 8.
That was your 8. Kessler, what's your 8?
My 8 is and we still have one episode left, but The White Lotus. I have found myself like every week with this show, like tuning in as soon as possible because like I don't know if either of you are watching, but one of the thing I'm most eager to see if it happens each week in television is like will somebody sleep with Aubrey Plaza? And like I don't know if either of you watched.
My life, and I don't even watch.
I don't know if either of you watched the first season, but the first season was more of a class satire, and this season of The White Lotus is really like an examination of sexual politics among the uber wealthy, and it's just delightful. So The White Lotus is my number 8. I hope it sticks the landing on Sunday. Have either of you watched it?
I haven't. Admittedly, I think like knowing where the first season takes place, it gives me a little bit of pause.
Mm-hmm.
But I haven't seen anything. But the lore of Aubrey Plaza is very strong for me to take a peek at season 2. So I might.
Yeah, she's pretty great.
She always is. She always is. I've not seen it nor season 1, to be totally honest with you. Not on any staunch stance. It just hasn't gone there. Though I think I finally did break Lori, because I've been trying to get her to watch, and then she said to me today, or was it today or yesterday? Wait, F. Murray Abraham's on it? Okay, let's watch it. And I was like, that's the thing? All right, love that guy. Let's do it. But so
he's great.
I think we may get to it soon. Okay. So 7 was Miss Marvel for you. Did we say your 8? Oh, you know, sorry, 7 was She-Hulk. She-Hulk.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
then 7 was Miss Marvel. Yeah.
Right. So I will go with my 7 then at this point. So I had The Sandman, Neil Gaiman show on Netflix. That is my Netflix entry. What can I say? I mean, we did a whole lot already checking on The Sandman. I thought that, I mean, I was predetermined to like it if it delivered, and I was going to over-like it anyway. But I would say that the flip side of that is if it didn't, I probably would have been more upset than maybe like any property I've loved in my life. And I thought it totally did. And I thought it, aside from, I think, being very inventive in the way they did a lot of things, and it was far from flawless or anything like that, but it was one of the more successful proactive changes from comic to screen adaptation for the betterment of the screen adaptation that I've seen any comic do. I think that's a testament to having Gaiman deeply involved in the process, and a writer of that caliber, and showrunners who really understood the material and how to make it work. A very strong cast, some of the darker episodes you'll see on TV. There were some tough ones to get through, but just a massive scope of a show that, much like the comic, has to balance the very, very quiet and small with the supernatural but super grandiose universe spanning. and found a way to deliver that and then some. It was exciting waiting for each, to watch the next one, and so happy to eat up more seasons. And I'll add this basically focused on Preludes and Nocturnes, and Doll's House, the earliest run in the Sandman comic book series. The series only gets much stronger in the comics from here on out. I am so excited to see what the next seasons of the show are going to bring.
Yeah, definitely agree. The Sandman for me is number 2.
Oh wow! Okay,
So
talk to me.
it's fairly high, and the reason for that is that any TV show or movie that then inspires me after I've already seen it to go out and actually read the source material and kind of delve into that world gets a top spot for me automatically, because it's very easy to just like consume something visually and just, I know the points, I got it, I could go home and kind of just like forget about it. But I was so deep into the Sandman because of this show, and now I'm reading it and making my way through it and living in that really rich world. And like you said, it's so great to have Neil involved, and that made all the difference. And that's what made the show great, and giving him kind of like creative control over this. And just the cast was just so stacked. I also will watch anything Gwendolyn Christie is in, like anything. So yeah.
Kessler, did you see Sandman?
No, I have not. I have not seen Sandman. So yeah.
All right. There we go.
Another one. I think most of your list I haven't seen yet.
I think that's mutual. So then, what is your 7? Your number 7?
My 7 is Atlanta. My 7
okay.
is Atlanta. Yeah, my 7 is Atlanta.
Did you separate the seasons for the sake of the reference, or did you combine them?
I think it's sort of like an overall feeling. I just wrote Atlanta. I think that I found season 3 to be a step back for the show. But I think that part of that is the show was purposefully trying to not be back for me, to push, to be sort of make people like me uncomfortable. I counter that by saying when you have a cast like that, we should have them on our screens and not have, the majority of the season not have these great actors not in most of the season. But the final season of Atlanta, I thought was a step forward. I found it to be, largely on par with my memory of seasons 1 and 2, and some really standout episodes. I thought it ended really well. And just like a really great show that, I wish we could get, 50 more episodes to see what that group could do.
Jackie, is it on your list?
No, actually, which is shocking now that I think about it.
Atlanta season 3, I did separate them. Season 3 does not make my list. I agree with a lot of what you said, but I've just adored season 4, with the big caveat that I have not watched the last episode. But unless it lands in a fiery train wreck somehow, or even if it does, it would still make my top 10, and maybe it would drop down a couple slots. But I had it in number 4, so I had it pretty high. I thought across the board it's consistently excellent. And then I thought the peak episodes of season I'd put up with the peak episodes of season 1 and 2. Or maybe a smidge below, but you're talking about like season 1 and 2 were probably my number 1 and number 1. You know what I mean? The years they came out.
The Tyler Perry Studios.
The Tyler Perry Studio one was
incredible stuff.
Unbelievable.
It's incredible stuff.
The Pumpet. It's whatever. I could go into
great.
The best acting,
really strong episodes in season 4.
Strong episodes, incredible acting, from a raw creative generative standpoint, unmatched on anything that's going to be on your screens, TV or film. And you know, my wife had made a really good point, so I'll steal it and say it here. You know, from when that show first came on to now, all four of them have become massive stars. It is hard. It is a much harder task to present a vehicle that does justice to talents of that caliber who have now have fame to equal that caliber, and still make it work. Whereas, um, you know, you had early on the wiggle room of introduction and gaining familiarity and slow playing. Um, and I think that is part of also what I think there were some struggles with season three. I think on top of everything you said, I also think they tried to find a way to handle the fame of it, and that was less successful. So just a great achievement, a great way to wrap up what is, I think, will be remembered for a generation as one of this generation's great shows.
Yeah.
So we're done with sevens, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Jackie, what is your number 6?
Number 6 for me was Obi-Wan. If that made anybody's list.
You are probably going to be on your own on this one, but
I
take it
know,
away.
I know.
I know
Listen.
how Kessler and I feel about Obi-Wan.
Oh boy.
I know, but okay. I think I really needed more about, you know, just who Obi-Wan is. And again, it's nostalgia, like seeing Ewan McGregor as Obi-Wan again, and then seeing Hayden Christensen, you know, reprise, you know, Anakin Skywalker, I guess really Vader at this point. It was great. And even though there were some really goofy spots, like Leia running in the woods away from those like kidnappers was just that had to have been done differently. I don't know. It was just the weirdest chase ever. You can't catch a 6-year-old. That's crazy to me. But other than that, it was great to see Leia's interaction with Obi-Wan, and Obi-Wan kind of reflect back on everything that happened, his relationship with Anakin, and where he stands now. And having watched a good bit of the Clone Wars, I really needed more about his journey after everything went down with Anakin. So, for that alone and that narrative, I really loved it. But it's not a perfect show. But it just gave me
Are
that
you
hit
a
of
big Star Wars
nostalgia.
fan? Yeah, would you, outside of that, do you consider yourself a large Star Wars fan?
Oh, that's dicey because, I mean, I know I'm
There's
scared,
levels. There's
but
levels
I
to
know
this shit.
there's levels to the shit. I'm not passive, but I'm
Mhm.
definitely not like violently
It,
aggressive.
it,
You know?
it's sort of this thing where it's like I've never seen a minute of Star Wars animated content. Am I allowed to be a Star Wars fan because of that? I've disliked most minutes of Star Wars content I've watched. Am I allowed to be a Star Wars fan because of that? I don't know.
My thinking is this: I think if you can enjoy different stories or characters within this really large universe, I think that makes you a fan. I don't think there's like some sort of license on how much you watch or how much you don't watch. And I really hope that narrative changes in this fandom because there's
It's a
so
pretty
many
tough
new
one.
people in it. Yeah, it's a tough one, but there's so many new fans uh, because of these new shows and the animated content. So, God, and for that, I love it. Yeah, Star Wars stuff
I,
is a huge hit for me most times.
I consider myself a Star Wars fan. I even, I have a vase on my bookshelf with some old Star Wars action figures in it. I was very excited for this show. I enjoyed the first episode or two, and I found the show to quickly become actively bad for me. And by the end, I thought it was really I found it to be a terrible show, and really did not enjoy it, and did not feel like it gave me any new insight into the character or even worked as a narrative story for me. So I want Star Wars
Way
to
to
do
keep
better.
it positive, Kessler. Way to keep it
Mhm.
positive. Yeah, it didn't work for me. I have to be honest. I dipped out on it. Not for like I hated it or anything like that. I had other places to spend my time. There's a lot of good Star Wars content this year actually, but that was not one of them. For me. Where are we at? So that was your
6.
Kessler,
That
did
was
we do your
6.
6?
We have not. Are we ready for
What's
it?
your number 6? Yeah, do
My
it.
number six is Barry on HBO, the Bill Hader show. Consistently, this is its third season. Every season has been excellent. Really really enjoyed the places that they took the character. I really love where they finished off the season, and and Bill Hader has really come into his own as a director as well, and it's just some really well directed television this season, and the way in which all these disparate stories and disparate tones kind of link up together is kind of miraculous. That you can do sort of the violent crime stuff with the sort of scathing Hollywood satire, and it all feels of a piece. So Barry is my number 6.
Jackie's Barry on your list?
No, Barry's one of those shows for me where I watched the first season and I was obsessed with it because, of course, Bill Hader, and I kind of love him now that he's free from the shackles of SNL and doing his own thing. But I haven't watched the latest seasons, and it's just one of those shows where I'm like, I'm going to get to it. I'm going to get to it. So don't know what's going on.
I am sure that Barry will be on my list when I finish it. The previous seasons were. I've just only seen the first episode of season 3, so I just can't put it there. But I love that show. I love him. It just hasn't happened yet. I'm sure I will cram it before the year, and we'll talk about it. So then my number 6 is Rings of Power. Well, before I talk about it, because I have a very succinct way to talk about it, but I want to see if it's on either one of your lists. I know it's not on yours, Kessler. Is it on yours, Jackie?
No, Rings of Powers is on that list where I'm like, I'm going to get to it. But I want to dedicate time to it because I do love Lord of the Rings, and I want to be able to take it in without the distraction of any other shows that I'm watching currently. So I'm waiting to finish up some stuff before I get into it.
So, right, Kessler, you haven't seen it even, right?
No, this was a show that I wasn't really that excited about. Yeah. And then a few months ago, I went to fire up the first episode. I saw it was over an hour long, and I watched an episode of Abbott Elementary instead. And that's sort of sell me on it.
So I can be quick about it. I did, and I also I had a guest on when we spoke about Rings of Power in depth. So I did a whole episode on it. So you can go check that out. It was well, first of all, just visually gorgeous. You saw how Daddy Bezos spent the dollars. I mean, it was very evident. The production design, the cast was just magnificent. My daughter decided to be Galadriel for Halloween. It was we genuinely looked forward to it again. Each episode was appointment watching. I thought the way it rounds out the lives of people and characters and creatures that often essentially are the stormtroopers, the background, the red shirts, the whatever of these kind of fantasy and sci-fi things, and gave them lives that had weight and consequence and purpose. Really was unique and was a bit of a roadmap for how to approach what was becoming dangerously kind of like I don't know, repetitive waters of IP, and like how to kind of keep that stuff fresh. So I recommend it. I found it enjoyable, and it looks great. So we did everybody's 6s. Okay. So I have a pretty significant jump up. I feel like my 6 through 10 I could have like mixed and matched, but I have a line break here, and my top 5 I feel collectively really separate out, and I had a hard time putting them in order. But I'm gonna give my number 5, which is Reservation Dogs. I think Reservation Dogs is just a little miracle. I can't believe it exists. It feels like a gift. It talk about representation. I mean, there's underrepresented and then there's just not represented at all. This is a community that has had absolutely no representation. I cannot believe that some of the people on that show are actors. Like that, some of them give such real performances, are so shockingly comfortable in front of the camera that I just forget sometimes that it's fantasy. And yet some of the stories are just over the top kooky and yet just pack emotional wallop, and I just don't think there's anything else like it. So that is my number 5. And we also have
Hardcore
Reservation Dogs.
agree. Yes. Reservation Dogs, which I cut up on it, not that long ago, is my number 3. And oh God, it's like, one of those shows that really makes you feel things. Like that entire experience is so unique, and it's not something that we see on TV ever. And just the writing and the humor and the emotional rawness of that experience, you absolutely get it through the screen. And yeah, it's a little miracle. It's so rare to see. And I'm glad that it got more than one season, because typically, I mean, historically, shows like these don't last very long.
Mm-hmm.
Reservation Dogs. This was my number 4 show. Reservation Dogs is an incredible achievement. In addition to everything you both said, it consistently surprises in the way in which it's able to build out its own world, and how any character who is introduced seemingly in the background can a few weeks later be the main character in their own story in an episode. And it's so rare when a show is like that can introduce side characters and pull them to the center, and they're just as compelling. Like all the lead actors in the show are all great, but when I talked about Atlanta sort of losing a step for me when its focus shifted from its main 4 characters, like this show can shift its focus to any number of other characters. The episode where the aunties go to the convention was probably one of the best of the season, and none of our main characters appear in it at all. And that's just like a really remarkable thing when a show can do that. And this was, my number 4. Great show.
Number 4, Jack, I think you told us your number 4 already, correct?
I still have a number 5 out there.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh yeah, we haven't done number 5. Yeah.
I'm a mess. Okay. Go ahead, Kessler. Give me your number 5.
All right. Well, speaking of Star Wars, there actually was a piece of Star Wars content this year that did do the trick for me, and that's Andor. I thought this was, for my measure, like the second best piece of Star Wars content since The Empire Strikes Back. It certainly didn't reach the heights of The Last Jedi. But like this, it was such a, for so many reasons, but the thing that really stuck out with me was after watching these other Disney Plus shows that look so terrible and are shot on that stupid fucking set with the LED wall, this show made me want to fucking go to Scotland like immediately. This show, like, you could tell they were real sets. They built that whole fucking town where the first 3 episodes and the finale took place in. It expanded the world of Star Wars in all these rich and compelling ways. And I want this show to run for like 100 episodes. I want it to just keep going, and I want to see the entire, like, I want this show to keep going through everything that happens in the original trilogy, and just to see what these fucking people were up to. I want the show to bring Mon Mothma from the Senate to that fucking room where she's briefing everyone. Keep it going for as long as possible. This is just amazing.
Yes. Andor for me was my number 4. It's such a different show that we usually get with any Star Wars things, because it's not solely about the space battles. It's not solely about the ship. It's really about the interpersonal relationships that led up to, the war, the Imperial, everything. And listen, this is coming from somebody that will fight anybody in a Target parking lot for bad mouthing Rogue One. I love Rogue One, and I needed this show to happen. And this gave me everything I wanted from a Star Wars show that just wasn't the run of the mill. Like, here's a lightsaber, here's some pew pews, and here's some robots. Which is great. I do love that, but I needed the nuance. And this show delivered on so many levels. The acting is amazing. I love Diego Luna. God, I could talk about this forever, but yeah, I really, really enjoyed Andor.
They did a heist episode, and then 4 episodes later, they did a prison break episode. The show's amazing.
It's so good. It's so good.
So I struggled with this show, and I struggled with not with the show. I love the show. I struggled with where to put it. And I put it number 1. It was my show for the year.
That's amazing.
I didn't know. I honestly, it wasn't like, yeah, I know.
Wow.
Everything that I said about Rings of Power, it's that times 10. It is the most perfectly designed show I've ever seen. Go back and watch this incredibly still scene between Mon Mothma and her sister when she reveals the truth of like what kind of financial trouble she's in and what she has to consider doing. Camera doesn't move. It is framed up on her. She delivers the most breathtaking performance. And in the background, the rain is just splattering along the window. And you just every once in a while hear the ship zoom by in the background. And you see the off on and the lights. It is so thought out to the millisecond. And it is not done for show. It's done to create the most thoroughly realized immersive world. The way that, how many elite performances did you get in this show? It was off the charts. All of
a sudden, Andy Serkis is in the show.
Yes,
and they didn't
just do
Serkis. And like 3 episodes later, you're like crying because he can't swim. This is amazing.
And you didn't do a heist. They didn't do a heist episode in a jailbreak. They did an incredible heist movie and an incredible jailbreak and that speech at the end. The moment where I forget his name, but like our obsessed like flunky guy grabs his like Third Reich love, and like they have that, and she's like about to break, and the thing she's showing across her eyes, the level of like I
want to say, like, go on.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No.
Sorry, go on.
No. I could wrap up episodic about it forever, like, but I agree.
Structuring the season as like the mini movies was like amazing and
brilliant.
Like the heist and Prison Break, I love that you saw them planning but didn't know what they were going to do. That's like, and then so it came as a surprise. That's like some Ocean's 11 style plotting. It's so good.
And they don't say the word Jedi. They don't say the word Force, and yet it is wholly Star Wars, which seems, if I told you that was going to happen 6 months before the show happened, you would say it will never be. That is the entire premise of this franchise. It is built around that. And we didn't see it. And the closest we came was the lightsaber shooting out of the spaceship, which was the most badass spaceship battle I've seen on TV or film in a couple of years. Even when they did the fucking pew pew, it was awesome.
It was amazing.
It was amazing. I total nerd out. It was great. And that final moment where he says, kill me or bring me in. I don't think that was a line. I don't think he was posturing. I think the showrunners created just a masterful script. That script is just, I'll never in my life be able to write even remotely that well. That to drag out his life so that he is literally, there is nothing there at the end. He can't go on running because he knows he will be ever pursued and everyone he loves around him will be killed for it. So either take him out and put him out of his misery or put me to fucking work. Was just a breathtaking moment. I chills on that show. Chills. And from a Star Wars show. I did not think after what we've experienced in the last, I don't know, 30 years, that was going to be able to happen again. But there I was. So Andor is my number one.
Great.
Yeah.
Amazing. Bravo.
So I know we're gonna wrap on that. We have a bunch of shows still. Where are we at? Did everyone give their 5?
No, I don't think we have.
What's your 5?
My 5 is a tie.
Okay.
Because I know one of them is definitely not on anybody's list. It's very niche.
Okay, go for it.
Yes.
But the first one is, listen, sometimes I like basic things. And I am deep in that Stranger Things fandom. I ship the Fruity Four, if folks know what that means. But there were things in the, this season that I absolutely don't think like the episodes needed to be as long as they did. Like the whole Russia thing was so dragged out that I was like, we don't really need this to be as long as it is. But I'm deeply invested in these characters, and it was far from a perfect season. But it was just, I just like going on this journey with these characters. I'm wondering where they're going to end up in the last season. And I will say that I will be very upset if Steve dies. I'm totally okay if Mike dies. I'm just putting it out there. If the Duffers ever see this, probably not, but they should kill off Mike. But that's Stranger Things, and I just also love the community surrounding that fandom, which is really, really rich. And just also the fanfic that comes out of that fandom is Chef's Kiss also. And my niche show is Sesame Street.
Oh.
I have a toddler.
Wait, pause.
Yeah.
I'm gonna clear the lane for you. I promise. Okay. Kessler, did you see Stranger Things this year?
I have never watched a minute of Stranger Things.
You've never seen it, right? I thought I knew that.
I've never seen it.
I totally enjoyed the first few seasons. I have not seen the last 2, and I don't know. There's no reason. It just has not happened. So I have nothing to add to it other than I'm usually all about Stranger Things. I genuinely enjoy it. It hasn't happened. So now let me take it back to you. And please,
I don't.
Oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say I don't have a single Netflix show in my top 25.
Oh wow.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to kick it back to you, and please. And as we just this week lost an all-time Sesame Street great,
Bob.
Right?
Bob is so sad.
90, good run. 90.
Yeah.
Can't really. I'll take it. But go ahead, give me Sesame Street.
Yeah, like I said, I have a 1-year-old. So it's right now it's Baby Shark, Elmo all the time. And at first we were just kind of watching like little clips off YouTube of Sesame Street because I'm like, she doesn't have the attention span for a full episode. But then we ran out of YouTube clips, so we had to actually start watching it. And of course, like you grow out of that show, you're not going to watch Sesame Street for the rest of your life. But seeing a lot of these characters again and how they've been changed for the times, they're picking up themes, and they're still going strong on framing really difficult situations, conversations for kids in a really tender and wonderful bite-sized way that I forget that the show exists. And now that I'm watching it again with my own kid, I'm like, this is a seminal show for everybody.
Yeah.
Like if you're a kid in America, there was at least a point where your parents needed to park you in front of the TV. And these characters are so deep within us that to see them again and especially through the eyes of my own kid, has been a really touching experience. And it just feels good to know that that show is still out there and touching on these difficult subjects, having relationships with kids in a different way. It's awesome. And this last season that I've seen is pretty great. And some of those songs are just now burned into my head. But yeah, Sesame Street.
That just genuinely makes me happy to hear. I'll be honest with you. My kids are 10, and so it's been a minute for us, but I went through that same experience, and I know exactly what you're talking about, and that's just I'm really happy to hear that.
Yeah.
So we're to 4s?
Yeah.
4 for me was Atlanta. 4 for Jackie was
Andor.
4 for me was Reservation Dogs.
Reservation Dogs. Okay, so let's go.
So
let's go to 3. And there's gonna have. I mean, I'm pretty sure there's gonna be a lot of overlap here. But go ahead, Kessler. Why don't you give me your 3?
My number 3 show was The Bear.
Mine as well. I was 3 as well.
Great. Yeah. Jackie, did you have it on your list?
That's one of my honorable mentions.
Okay, great.
Yeah. I wanted to put it somewhere in there, but I ran out of numbers.
Yeah. I
Gotcha.
mean, look, some of yours were in mine. This show was great. Just the cast was incredible, and it was so well shot and directed. I mean, everyone was in love with that sort of episode 9, I think, that was shot to look like a oneer. I was more partial to then I fired at the next episode, and we had sort of a lengthy monologue by the lead. His name is blanking on me right now. Jeremy Allen White.
His name's Gene Wilder. Gene Wilder. That's who it is.
Yeah. And I thought that the show continued to find new depths. This was the first thing I had seen Ayo Edebiri in. I thought she was so good in this show. I want her. My thing with anytime a new person I see in something, I'm like, oh, I want them to play an X-Men. Like, I want her to play an X-Men. I want Devery Jacobs from Reservation Dogs to play an X-Men. Like, I just want anytime a young performer turns up and is amazing, it's just like I want them as an X-Men. I don't know. Dan, take it away with The Bear. What did you like about it? Yeah.
Okay, so this might be a little niche too, but I am convinced if my life rebooted and I did it all over again, I'd be a chef. I'm fully convinced of that. So I came into this pretty biased, but I do tend to digest chef books, content, etc. in general. The frenetic, volatile, chaotic, and uniquely familial, loving, self-destructive, group supportive, all of those very distinctly restaurant kitchen things were so fantastically portrayed, and it somehow was fine with whether you kept up with it or not, because that's how the kitchen's going to work. So you either keep up with it or not, but it's going to keep going. And you just kept going with it and trying to keep up, and it didn't handhold at fucking all. And then eventually you did. Eventually you were there and you were in it and you felt the rhythm and you were able to go at the speed that it would. And so when it did the one track, you were fine. You could hang with it, and it pulsed the cocaine that probably they're all on, into your veins as you're watching it, and was so kind of honest about the kind of self-destructive nature of things, the self-loathing of things, that and sort of the shame and blame of close loss, and not understanding when family takes their own life, and just all of that, and the way it just through different cultures, which is again a really honest portrayal of kitchens in America, together, and that all mixes up into its own cultural conversation. I just adored it. on top of great performances, great writing, great camera work, etc. And
another like a workplace show that talks about class with sort of, you know, the
yeah,
high end chef meeting with the low end cooks, sort of. Yeah,
yeah,
just I think something that's been on people's minds.
and the ideas of respect and support, and also just like it it was a family show and a workplace show.
Hmm.
It
Yeah.
somehow checked both those boxes, which I think is really hard. And then also, like, again, a theme. I mean, this is obviously not a production design show the way we're talking about Andor and another show that we'll talk about in a little
But
bit,
it
etc.
is. But
But
it
but
is.
well, it is. But also, it what thematically it does connect to a lot of other things. Is it just like Reservation Dogs, like Sandman? Like, it felt like a breath of fresh air. It just felt like, okay, we went through kind of years of like, this is how we're doing it, this is how we're doing it, this is how we're doing it. And again, I think in the IP era, we were kind of starved for it. So in the way that I think Andor and Rings of Power gave a little bit of a roadmap of how to handle that, I think prestige television, and this is like weirdly in that category, but also like
Hmm.
something totally different. Here's a different new way you can still
Yeah.
deliver this quality of something, and it doesn't have to be an hour long period piece with like driven by, you know, the same like beats, and I just gobbled it up.
Well, Carmi's like 7-minute monologue where he's, you know, with that group is just honestly one of the most stunning pieces of acting that I've seen this year. And
He's
I'm
so
so
good.
glad, yeah, I'm so glad that because of this
Yeah.
And
show,
his eyes are
Jeremy
just so
Allen White
dreamy.
is like, you know, shooting off into the stratosphere. I think he has like an A24 lined up or movie lined up or
Yeah,
something. But it
stoked
is
to do
just
that.
such a stellar piece of acting. Just that 7-minute monologue alone.
So
Um,
yeah.
yeah, so good.
So then, Jackie, what is your number three?
My number three, love that my notes just like imploded. My number three was actually Reservation Dogs.
Okay.
Hmm.
So then what is your number two?
My number two was The Sandman.
Oh,
Mm.
great. So my number two is going to be Kessler's number one. So Kessler, why don't you give me your number two?
My number two is Better Call Saul. And you know, this show, um, one like did either of you watch Better Call Saul? Had any of you ever watched Better Call Saul and fallen off of it?
Yeah, that's
No.
I went through 3 seasons maybe.
Yeah. So I
And
mean,
by all accounts it got significantly better like right after I stopped watching, and I know I need to go back, but
yeah.
it just
So
feels like a heavy
well,
lift now, you know?
I would say that like one, you know, these guys like know how to make television. They're just the quality of all the production design, all the acting, all the casting, all of the cinematography, scripting, plotting, dialogue, everything, um, lighting, going back all the way through Breaking Bad up until the very last episode of Better Call Saul. It's just like everything is immaculate. And then in the early seasons, I think that the show struggled to find its purpose. Like the first season, especially, really felt like the reason they made the show was simply so all of those creatives could keep working together. And as the show moved on, continued, it found more of a sense of purpose and more of a sense of purpose. And then in this final season, it it really not only like wrapped up the story of the Saul character in just like a very compelling manner, and all the characters in that show, but also like the totality of this universe that they created over the two shows. By the end of Better Call Saul, it's serving as a capstone to both shows, both plot wise, thematically. You know, it's no spoiler to say that elements of the show take place after Breaking Bad, and they certainly address those as the show reaches its conclusion. And really just kind of like a miraculous finish of the show where the last season was just like banger after banger. Every episode was one of the best, similar to Breaking Bad, just like astonishing episodes week after week, all the way to a conclusion that I loved. It worked wonders for me. I think that anyone who stuck with that show all the way to the end was really rewarded. But it's the thing I suspect like most people aren't going to go back and, I think the finale is episode like 65 or something. So, but it was excellent.
Did you ever Better Call Saul it, Jackie?
No, and this is one of those things where people are always like, "Oh, you've never seen that thing?" I've never seen Breaking Bad.
Oh, you've never seen Breaking Bad?
I've never seen Breaking Bad. No, dude.
Wow.
I've never seen it. Yeah. So I mean,
this just in. It's pretty good. Breaking Bad's pretty good.
I know. It's one of those shows, and I
man.
don't know. I just missed it.
Yeah.
I don't know if I would call Better Call Saul a better show than Breaking Bad, but by the end, it was certainly more compelling and had more interesting things to say than Breaking Bad. Breaking Bad is a show about a man who has always been a terrible, finding ways to sort of come unto his own. And Better Call Saul is centered around the question of can people change? Breaking Bad posits that it's a show about change, and it's really not. Better Call Saul is about like, was this man always this way, and could he actually change for the better?
So, she threw it quiet because there were some baby noises in the background.
It's actually my cat.
Oh, that's fine. Well, I was just going to throw it to you for your number one show because I know what Kessler and I have left on our list, so I wanted to throw it to you to see your number one show. Maybe it's the same one as ours. I don't know.
I don't know.
Probably not.
My number one is What We Do in the Shadows.
Good for you. Okay, go ahead. I'll talk about it in a minute.
I don't know what it is about a mockumentary and vampires. It just works so well for me. There's times where I just kind of want to sit back, relax, just have a really kind of smart, weird, absurdist comedy. I need people to throw around like corpses and be funny about it. And it's also like, I have a feeling there might be a queer love story happening in there, but I love that.
There's like a lot of queer love stories in there.
I know, but gay is in, gay is hot, gay is how it's gay is in the words.
Yeah, exactly.
I love Laszlo. I love Jackie Daytona. I love that whole world.
I was Jackie Daytona for Halloween, by the way.
Good for you. That's awesome. And Nadia is everything I aspire to be. And it's just so well written. It's so funny. And honestly, I think it's a show that you can just pick up at any season and you'll get it. Like it's not rocket science, really. It's absolutely absurdist. And I love that there's a show like this that exists. And it's definitely rewatchable for me. It gives me such comfort and joy. Yeah.
It was on my honorable mention list. It was on my first draft of my top 10 and then just fell out. If this was like a top 10 of like just shows, it would 100% be very high on the list. I just thought this season was a little bit, was not as high of a height as previous seasons have been for me, but I love it. It's hilarious. It's the cast is just an untouchably hilarious group. So do you watch it at all, Kessler?
No, I've never gotten into it. So everyone seems to love it. I've never gotten into it though.
It's so funny. It's painfully funny. All right. Well, my number 2 is your number 1. So I'm sure. and I'll cede the floor to you. I mean, we've done an entire episode on it.
Yeah.
An effusive over-the-top episode. And I was so sure it was going to be my number 1 until it wasn't. Mm-hmm. But it just as easily could have been. So take it away. What's your number 1, Kessler?
It's Severance. Like man, I was talking about the themes of work and the themes of class and sort of a perfect post-pandemic show, a show about identity, a show about who we are as people, who we wish we could be as people, a show about labyrinthian corporate structures. It's Severance. Severance is the show of the year. Like, my God, like, one of the best directed things. I mean, like, Ben Stiller, like, Jesus Christ, like, this show, they, like, another one that, like, knows how to make, they knew how to make episodic TV, and that, like, means a lot to me. I don't think there's anything really much of anything on my list that's just like you're muddling through. You know, I said I have 0 Netflix shows in my top 25. There's no, like, nonsense of, like, muddling through 8 episodes of nonsense. Severance has twists and turns at every step. You learn more information every week. You and, like, man, we've seen a whole first season, and there's so much we don't know even about our main characters. There's so much the show still has to show us. This is a show that could go on for a long time. It came, like, nearly out of nowhere. I was on board from the very first minute, and man, that final episode is one of the best directed things I've seen on TV in years. What an achievement! I'm so excited. I hope it comes back soon. Severance. Jackie, have you seen Severance?
I need to get on Apple Plus to watch Severance.
Oh, gotcha. It's really it's something, Jackie. It's really something.
No, I know. I keep hearing about it, but it's just like one more streaming service. But
Yeah,
I
no,
I
I know.
know I'll get to it.
It's tough. It is tough. So yeah, I mean, yes, and everything you said, Kessler. Again, one of my dominant themes of the year: production design at you know transcendental levels. If I was pulling like single shot or short scene visuals, there are more memorable scenes and moments and visual pictures from that series than anything else than like the rest of my list combined, basically. It is something that could be that haunting and gripping and that like belly laugh funny within like a flip of a coin or whatever turn of the page, whatever phrase you want to use, is just an incredibly rare achievement. Agreed about the directing. Its sense of balancing this like tense patience with mass propulsion and kind of like pulling you like a roller coaster and that sort of lull of it and before it drops you, and doing that without any sense of like you don't resent them pulling you, you know what I mean, is again just like a very difficult thing to pull off. Great cast, actors we've known for their entire careers, and respected and thought were great, being cast in roles that somehow still managed to give us a completely new look at their body of work. I mean, Arquette, of course I'm blanking now, Christopher Walken, Totoro. I mean, icons, giving us new, which I wasn't sure was possible for some of those actors. And much mystery to come. So yeah, I can't wait. I can't wait for more. And I mean, it really was the way I sort of split this tie at 1 for me, and the only reason Andor went ahead is I think what Andor's impact is on the entirety of a genre and what it can sort of like lay the groundwork for is so titanic that it edged ahead, but it was no lack of just off the charts quality from Severance. So we've all hit our top 10s. Anybody
done it?
I'm gonna riff a couple honorable mentions that just I didn't get to. Let's not spend a long time on them.
Yeah, I have a few too.
I mentioned Abbott Elementary, What We Do in the Shadows. have two shows that both started and I was sure they were going to be in my top 10, and then they both finished and weren't, but are still very worth it. It was The Old Man, which I really loved for about half a season, and then was like okay at the end. Outer Range, which I was sure was going to be in my top 10, and I mean, A plus performances, really crazy mood, but like just kind of didn't have a there when it was over. And then if anyone's fans of the show Dark on Netflix a few years ago, I loved it. Those creators have a brand new show at 1899 that I've only seen 2 episodes, so I could not put it on my list, but I have a strong suspicion that had I finished the season, it might have found its way out here. Jackie, any honorable mentions for you want to shout out?
Honorable mentions, after watching a lot of like franchise heavy stuff, my honorable mentions are a little bit all over the place. One of them is the most recent season of Big Mouth.
I love, yes. Thank you. Yeah, it was a very good season.
I love Big Mouth. And part of me, it's like, okay, there's some parts that are probably not great for kids, but I'm like, if I would have seen this as a 6th grader during sex ed, many things would have been so much easier growing up. It's so honest and it's hilarious and it's totally inappropriate. But I think it takes almost a loving look at puberty and, all those things.
A particularly strong season too. No, just a particularly strong season.
Yeah, and I love the character of Jessie, and I love her arc this season. So if anything, watch it for that. Also, really great episode on yeast infections. I really recommend it for anybody. For all my yeasties out there, that's really
because it's a show where you can say that sentence. Like that's the point, right? Like there's nothing else like it, really.
That's so honest, and it needs to be honest. Like, your body is not shameful. Puberty, changing development, sex, it's fine. It's human. But that's a big honorable mention for me. A second honorable mention is A League of Our Own, the new series, Amazon Prime, talking about queer shows. It's important in that it centers on queer women or femmes, which you don't get a lot of on TV. And I think you don't need to see the movie to see the series, but this series is what I wish the movie was. And the movie was good for what it was during the time, but I think it missed out on a lot of opportunities to do some honest storytelling. And the costumes in this are just amazing. And right after that, talking about queer shows, is Our Flag Means Death. This show in the beginning, it took me a while to get into because I thought it was just kind of hokey. But then, like, things started happening, the humor started clicking, and I was in it. And, spoiler warning for anybody, but the kiss just felt so tender and honest. And I just loved it. So those are my honorable mentions.
Kessler?
I just have a few things. I feel like most of the things that were in my honorable mentions are things that, like, I liked, but didn't sort of reach sort of higher level of achievement. Sort of Hacks is on the list. This was my number 1 show last year. And I think on one hand, this is just a much better year of television, but I think the second season was a step back for the show. Winning Time. I know that Dan, either of you watched the Winning Time? This show I thought it was a ton of fun and could be like a lot of fun. It's like it's going to go for a while, and a really interesting, Adrian Brody plays Pat Riley, but this entire season really takes is years before he's even head coach. And it's just like a really interesting look at like the guy who becomes super famous and successful when he's at his lowest point before the rise. The Dropout, I thought, was like well done for what it was. Harley Quinn,
Yes.
I feel like
I didn't see it. A lot of people loved that show.
Yeah, Harley Quinn's awesome, so much fun. And the other one that actually, like, something that I was thinking a lot about this year was shows that, like, if I watch the show, like, as soon as I can watch the show, it probably means that I like it and care about it more than I give it credit for. And I actually think by the end of the season, House of the Dragon kind of almost worked for me. And I think it might kind of almost be looking like the second season could maybe be good. I don't know, but I'm excited to see where they go with that. And I would have been shocked to hear myself say that after 2 or 3 weeks.
I am with Kessler. I was a little skeptical of House of the Dragon, but Emma Darcy as Rhaenyra is so good. Is so good. And her relationship with Olivia Cook's character, I don't know why their name escapes me right now, but that dynamic is so pointed and rich and toxic. And I towards the end, everything kind of worked and aligned. And I'm looking forward to it being a really bloody season in season 2. But this also kind of like fills that void of a trashy family messy show that I need. And yeah,
So we have Yellow Jackets coming back for.
Oh my God, don't even get me started about Yellow Jackets. I can talk about it forever. But yeah, that show worked for me in the end. And I know it wasn't everybody's cup of tea, but
I did not make it through episode 2. So that's how much I like that show. I literally could not finish the second episode.
It strikes me that they've now settled down with the time jumps, and that was, structurally made this season challenging. And if they were in this time frame now, and it's all these same actors, and we can dive into them a bit, it's a much better foundation for a show.
Also, there's a kid fight.
I'll take your word for it.
There's a what? There's a kid fight.
There's multiple dragons fighting. It's great.
Yeah,
I don't know if it's great. It's getting there.
Did any of you see Pachenko?
No.
Yeah, I didn't either. So for all of you out there that probably have it on your list, none of us saw it, so don't add us.
Pachinko didn't. Yeah, sorry. I did watch We Own This City, and it did not make my list. Yeah. Let's just say that.
I didn't get to it either. Okay, so 2 questions before we get out of here because we're already at an hour and a half. Real quick, I just wanted to get just a quick tally. What networks or platforms were your shows from or not from? So I just as a quick touch, I was very surprised to find out I had only one Netflix show on my list. FX took 3, 4, and 5, and an honorable mention. Oh, and 2 honorable mentions. So I had a big FX year. Disney Plus had 3. Apple TV had 2. Amazon 1. Netflix 1.
Let me see.
Anybody else want to jump in?
Lot of HBO Max, and a decent number of Hulu FX. I didn't break out FX from Hulu.
Yeah, neither.
And I didn't break out the HBO proper versus HBO Max, but my top 10 had 3 from HBO and 3 from FX, and then 1 from a bunch of others.
Yeah, I had a handful of Disney Plus, curse that mouse. It's just like, take my money. Why not, I guess.
Well, better have more. It's the same fee, right? You want to have more than less.
I know. It's just so evil. They keep taking my money. Anyways, Disney Plus was really big. Netflix was my, I guess, number 2 platform, and then rounding up is FX, which I guess is Hulu. But yeah, those were kind of like where I ping-ponged a lot.
Okay. And so let's end with this. First of all, thank you guys for your time. And if you've hung with us to this whole show, thank you for being part of it. You must like it. So please subscribe, do all that stuff. It really helps out. And tell us your favorite shows, or if we missed one or whatever, please let us know in the comments. What is there a show you are most looking forward to in 2023?
I mean, it's Severance coming back, hopefully. And if that
maybe
doesn't...
Succession.
Yeah, and if Severance isn't going to make it in 2023, we have a new season of Succession coming in the spring. So it's Severance and Succession. Those are the 2 right now.
Jackie?
Keeping up with my not intense love of Star Wars slash kind of intense is Ahsoka. Again, I love Clone Wars. Super attached to that character. I know, they came out in The Mandalorian. I was really excited about it. So I'm really looking forward to see where they take that character post Anakin Skywalker. And also after seeing the trailer for Secret Invasion, it looks so good.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. I was not hyped for that at all. I know the comic quite well. And then the trailer dropped and I was like, this looks awesome.
I was like,
Totally.
whoa, okay, yeah. So really looking forward to Secret Invasion, and more on Disney Plus is Echo, which I'm super psyched that we're getting a little more diversity, a little different something, and also kind of still delving into the world of Daredevil through Echo. But yeah, those are my top three.
I can't talk a lot about it, but this channel may have a really special guest in regards to Echo, and we'll just leave it at that when it drops. I am one of my favorite video games of all time is The Last of Us. It is going to kick off the year right at the top on HBO. The trailer dropped. It looks fantastic. It looks so much like the game. I'm sort of like in awe just visually. It's anyway, Last of Us, a premium zombie video game, HBO, sign me up, pump it in my veins. Let's go. So
yeah, I'm ready to get emotionally eviscerated by that show.
Yeah. Oh, it will. Do you know, the game at all?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah. I mean,
I'm ready.
It's going to be gut punch after gut punch. So, all right. Anything else anyone needs to add?
I think we did it.
No,
yeah.
We did it, guys. We did it. The year's over. We won.
Yeah.
We did it. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next time.